A very good evening. From stories around the world to stories here at home, this is the National News broadcast. I'm Vidushni Sadish Kumar.
Good evening, I'm Lakshya Singha, and we start off tonight by taking a quick look at the top stories.
Kolhapitiya Police Division to be isolated from midnight today. The number of COVID patients reported in the past 24 hours exceeds 500. The world sets the record for the highest number of new coronavirus cases in the last 24 hours. India also sets a new record in cases. President says the changes required for a turning point in the country's education will be introduced soon. A Sri Lankan company prepares to build an international financial hub as the first investment to Colombo port city.
Moving on to those and other stories in detail, starting off with the top story for tonight. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says that the changes required for a turning point in the country's education will be introduced at the earliest. The president said that the objective of the government is to endow a future generation that is productive to the country and that can directly contribute to the country's economy. The president made these remarks while participating at the certificate awarding ceremony of the first phase of the national program titled Ratak Watina Potak to author 10,000 books, which was held at Temple Trees yesterday. The project was launched with the objective of improving the children's creative writing and reading skills, especially during the period of school closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Ministry of Education and the National Library and Documentation Services Board jointly implemented the program based on a concept of former Minister Dallas Alaha. Students from grade 1 to 13 in all government schools, Pirivena's private and international schools were given the opportunity to submit creations in the three languages of Sinhala, Tamil and English. The target of the project was to publish 10,000 books, and nearly 43,000 submissions have been received from all over the country by the closing date. The president said that 100 selected creations are expected to be printed and presented with state awards. The president symbolically awarded certificates to 30 students representing the 9 provinces. Library and Documentation Services Board Chairman Sonala Gunawardena presented the first volume of the Jatika Janakatha Sangraya to the president. President Rajapaksa said that it is essential to make the children read more books with the intention of making them as productive citizens who love the country and the world. The president emphasized that a country can be developed only through quality education. Minister of Education Professor G.L. Piris, Minister of Power Dallas Alaha, Education Ministry Secretary Professor Kapila Pereira, other officials of the Ministry of Education, principals, teachers and students were present at the occasion.
Now on to a corona story. Sri Lanka Army Commander General Shavendra Silva says that the Kolhapitiya Police Division will be isolated from midnight today. The health authorities have informed the public should strictly adhere to health protective guidelines. The health authorities have indicated that the number of COVID-19 cases in Thittavalgala in Kurunegala has increased up to 163 at present. So far, 1,359 persons belonging to 414 families in the area have been directed to self-isolation. Accordingly, the movement in Hangamuvatta, Galgamugala and Palugamawatta in Neeraviya Ganewatta Grama Seva Division and Dodam Watawala area in Nikadalupota Grama Seva Division has been restricted. Also, 48 COVID-19 patients have been identified from Vallavagedara area in Diulapitiya Medical Health Authority Officers Division. According to reports, the identified patients have participated in holiday tours and parties recently. Operations are underway to detect more patients. 9 COVID-19 patients have been detected from Payagala area in Beruwala. 2 of the patients have been identified as students in a private school, and accordingly, both the grades of the students in school have been temporarily suspended. Reports have been indicated that 15 inmates at Kuruvita prison in Ratnapura have been tested positive for COVID-19. Meanwhile, 11 officers attached to Jaffna police station have been identified as COVID-19 patients. Minister Professor G.L. Piris said that the resumption of universities have been postponed by 2 weeks in accordance to the directives of the health authorities. The total number of COVID-19 recoveries in the country has increased up to 93,884 thus far. Another 4,056 patients are still receiving treatments in hospitals. Also, another 520 COVID-19 cases have been identified in the country today. A special discussion to obtain assistance from the South Korean health sector for the COVID-19 prevention program in the country was held at the official residence of the Korean ambassador to Sri Lanka today. The meeting was held between Minister Pavitra Wanyarachi and Ambassador of South Korea to Sri Lanka Wong Ji-jeon. Dr. Chandima Jivandar says that plans have been made to initiate a special PCR testing covering the entire country on next Tuesday. The Director of Allergy, Immunity and Cell Biology Unit of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura said that the aim of this new initiative is to detect any new variants of COVID-19 virus exist within the country.
We are trying to do a special PCR starting from Tuesday, where we will be able to detect the variants of concern which have been described in the other parts of the world, where for example the UK variant, the South African variant, the Brazil variant, and also there is a variant described in California. So those are a few variants which have been labeled as variants of concern, and from this special new PCR we will be able to identify whether our patients belong to that categories only. So if they don't belong to that category, we will not be able to detect which mutation or which the variant they belong to, but we will be definitely able to say whether the PCR is positive or negative, but we will not be able to categorize them into different variants except for those recognized few variants. So based on that results, we will be proceeding to our next generation sequencing of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, where we will be doing a whole genome analysis, where we will be able to categorize and identify virus from any variant. So depending on the results of the PCR, we will be proceeding to the next sequencing, which we hopefully will be starting by the end of this month or beginning of early next month. So we are very keen to know the results and give that information to the Ministry of Health, because the Director General of Health Services and the Secretary of the Health has already instructed us to carry out these analysis as soon as possible, and we are complying with their request, and we are trying to give the results as soon as possible, and sooner the results is available, we will be officially handing over that data to the Ministry of Health. Whatever the variants circulating in Sri Lanka, it's important that we need to adhere to our basics. During the festive season, probably quite a lot of people violated these basic principles. That could have been one of the reasons for the increasing of the caseload.
In the meantime, India marked a grim milestone in the COVID-19 pandemic today, reporting more than 314,800 new daily cases, reporting the highest one-day tally globally, as its second wave and similar surges elsewhere raised new fears about the ability of health services to cope.
India has reported the world's highest single-day tally of COVID-19 cases on Thursday, with over 300,000 new daily cases. Hospitals across northern and western India said they were in crisis and running out of oxygen. More than two-thirds of hospitals had no vacant beds, according to the Delhi's government's online database. This man said the hospital refused to admit his son because there's no oxygen and no beds. India's total reported cases are now at over 15 million, with the death toll reaching nearly 185,000, according to the latest Health Ministry data. Varsha Verma has arranged free ambulance services in Uttar Pradesh to carry the bodies of poor COVID-19 patients whose families cannot bear the expense. But as grieving relatives arrive at crematoriums, they have to wait for their turn to say their final farewells. Some crematoriums in the country said metal parts of the furnaces have begun to melt because they have been running for too long without a break. India has launched a vaccination drive, but only a tiny fraction of the population has had the shot. Health experts say the country won't have enough for the 600 million over 18-year-olds eligible, adding that India had let its guard down when the pandemic seemed to be under control during the winter, and that the new virus variants, in particular a double mutant that originated in the country, are largely responsible for the spike in cases. In recent weeks, the government has been criticized for holding local elections and large religious festivals. This week, Prime Minister Narendra Modi insisted that state governments should use lockdowns as a last resort, and promised the government was working to increase the supply of oxygen and vaccines.
Well, from India to US, the United States State Department has added at least 116 countries this week to its Level 4 Do Not Travel advisory list, adding the United Kingdom, Canada, France, Israel, Mexico, Germany and others on the list as the emergence of a severe surge in COVID-19.
The United States this week added over 100 countries to its Level 4 Do Not Travel advisory list, including the UK, Canada, France, and Israel. On Monday, the State Department said it would expand that list to curb visits from about 80% of countries worldwide. Before Tuesday, only 34 countries were on the red list. Now it has 150. The recommendations are not mandatory and do not bar Americans from international travel. Other countries like Finland, Egypt, and Mexico were added to the Do Not Travel advisory, while others remained at a Level 3 recommendation of reconsider travel, like China and Japan. As for entering the country, Washington has already barred nearly all non-U.S. citizens if they've recently been in China, Brazil, Iran, South Africa, or most of Europe. And on Tuesday, the U.S. extended its restrictions on non-essential travel across the Canada and Mexico borders. The CDC said fully vaccinated people could travel safely within the U.S., but its director discouraged Americans from doing so, citing regional surges in cases.
The debate on the final report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Political Victimization was commenced in the Parliament today. The relevant proposal was presented to the Parliament by the governing party. Meanwhile, Speaker Mahinda Rupavahini addressing the Parliament said that a committee comprised of 7 senior parliamentarians will be appointed to inquire into the disruptive situation occurred in the Parliament yesterday. Minister Dinesh Gunawardena said that a situation has risen following an alleged assault on MP Tissa Kuttiarachchi within the parliamentary complex. He said that the alleged assault has occurred at the entrance and the police stands as eyewitness for this incident. Therefore, he requested an intervention in this regard. Parliamentarian Hesha Vitanage said that the Speaker is unable to interfere when others fail to identify senior MPs and engage in clashes within the chambers. Therefore, he requested the Speaker to take some control in this regard. Minister Nama Rajapaksa said that the seniority of the MP is irrelevant if a parliamentarian is unable to use appropriate language and be disciplined in his conduct within the chambers. He said that one of the MPs proceeded ahead with a Facebook Live to showcase the conduct of the other MPs in the chamber during his speech. He requested the Speaker to conduct an investigation into the incident occurred yesterday at the Parliament and take a decision to stop such acts from occurring in the future. Speaker Mahinda Rupavahini said that a committee comprised of 7 senior MPs will be appointed to conduct a complete investigation and take APT decisions in this regard.
The annual report of the People's Bank for the year 2020 was presented to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa today. The report was handed over by Chairman of the Bank, Sujiva Rajapaksa. According to the annual report, the bank's pre-tax profit is at 21 billion rupees, while the post-tax profit is at 14 million rupees. For the year 2020, the dividends of the bank was at 3.5 billion, while the government tax was cited as 14 billion rupees. Adhering to the public financial policies, the People's Bank is expected to reach a profit of 25 billion rupees and more than 15 billion rupees worth tax revenue, along with targeted dividends of 3 billion. Chief Executive Officer of the People's Bank, Ranjit Kodituakku, was present at this event. Further consideration of the petitions filed with the Supreme Court challenging the Colombo Port City Economic Commission draft bill was postponed for tomorrow. The Supreme Court ordered the Additional Solicitor General, who represented the Attorney General, to take steps to study the proposed amendments to the relevant draft bill and make submissions during the hearing tomorrow. The relevant 4 petitions were taken up for consideration before a 5-member Supreme Court judge panel led by Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya and Justices Bhuwanikalu Viharya, Priyantha Jayawardena, Murthu Fernando and Janak De Silva. At the beginning of the consideration of the petitions, the attorney representing the Secretary to the President, Dr. P.B. Jayasundara, President's Counsel Ramesh De Silva made submissions before the judge bench, citing that the government has already directed several amendments to the draft bill for the consideration of the Attorney General. President's Counsel M.A. Sumandiran, representing petitioner Gamini Vyangoda, also made submissions before the court today. He said that the Attorney General has informed the courts that amendments will be introduced to the draft bill following 4 days since the beginning of the consideration of the petitions. He said that the opportunity should be facilitated for the petitioners to study the proposed amendments to the draft bill. Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya said that the relevant parties have the ability to study the proposed amendments and present facts to the courts through written submissions. Additional Solicitor General Farshana Jamil, representing the Attorney General, said that the petitioners have alleged that the commission established through the proposed act would gain unlimited powers with no accountability. However, the Additional Solicitor General said that the proposed commission will function under all laws and regulations imposed in the territory of Sri Lanka. The Additional Solicitor General also said that the allegations levelled by the petitioners claiming that the inclusion of the Colombo Port City Zone into the Colombo Administrative District has not been carried out in an appropriate manner are baseless. She further said that the inclusion of the Colombo Port City Zone into the Colombo Administrative District and the issuance of the relevant Gazette notification have been carried out following necessary regulations. She also indicated that special economic zones are not included within the Provincial Council subject matter and the economic zones can be established through the national policy. Therefore, she pointed out that the provisions of the draft bill fail to conflict with the Provincial Council subject matter. Meanwhile, representing Secretary to the Ministry of Finance S.R. Artigala and Secretary to the Cabinet Donald Fernando, President's Counsel Sanjeeva Jayawardena said that the majority of the members of the proposed commission appointed by the President will be comprised of Sri Lankan nationals. The President's Counsel said that this project will assist in increasing the gross domestic product of the country, also to generate a massive quantity of foreign exchange. Therefore, he said that all provisions in the draft bill have not violated the Constitution. President's Counsel Kushandi Alvis said that more than 5,000 special economic zones similar to the Colombo Port City have been established across the world. He said that the distribution of attractive tax concessions for investors who are expecting to invest in the proposed Colombo Port City project is a normal condition and not illegal. Therefore, he said that no fundamental right of any citizen in the country has been violated through this draft bill. He further said that a 2/3 majority or a referendum is not necessary to pass the draft bill since the provisions in the proposed bill is in line with the Constitution. Considering all submissions, the 5-member judge bench suspended the consideration of the petitions until 10 a.m. tomorrow.
A Sri Lankan company is set to construct an international financial center as the first investment in Colombo Port City. The company has indicated that this zone, which consists of infrastructure facilities of developed countries, is an extension to Colombo City. The whole landmass of the Colombo Port City is comprised of 1,102 acres. The reclaimed land portion is considered at 664 acres. Accordingly, the area allocated to construct building is a 439-acre land and 74 land plots have been allotted for the investors. An agreement has been reached to extend 286 acres of land on 99-year lease basis for the project company out of the 439-acre land, which can be utilized to construct buildings. The government has the authority to directly utilize or lease out the rest of the 153-acre land plot.
Reclaimed land of Port City Colombo is owned by the government of Sri Lanka. The investment for the entire development of the reclaimed land as well as the breakwater and the ensuing infrastructure that needs to go into the reclaimed land is invested through the project company Czech Port City Colombo Private Limited. And the entire investment comes at zero cost to the government of Sri Lanka. However, the ensuing benefits to the country, although there was no cost to the country, the ensuing benefit to the country is huge. The success of Port City will depend on how successfully we can attract investors into the country. And in order to attract, the direct investment will come into the development of the vertical real estate structures that you see here. For any real estate developer or investor, there are three fundamental risks that an investor would look at: the territory risk of the country that they're entering, the development risk of the country that they're entering, and the demand risk. What we hope to address through the Port City Commission bill is to address the territory risk as well as the development risk, and to create an investment friendly, conducive environment. However, what is going to position Sri Lanka as a hub for services through Port City is the positioning that we would have to do of Sri Lanka or Port City as a hub for services. Because if you're setting up a commercial building, an investor would be very interested to know where is the demand coming from. Who is going to rent the building that I'm going to build? So in order to do that, we've got all the right ingredients, all the right conditions to go to the world and to go to these leading services sector companies.
The company has indicated that a suitable environment has been created to attract investors to the country through the draft bill to appoint the Economic Commission for the Port City. The project company has further indicated that the aim of the establishment of the commission is to provide facilities for the investors to fulfill all service requirements through a single window and create an infrastructure with an appropriate legal framework and efficient management. Accordingly, Colombo Port City has reached its most important phase at present. The project is expected to be introduced to the rest of the world after resolving the existing problematic condition.
Today, the global community celebrates the Earth Day. As the world battles a climate crisis caused by the carbon footprint, the Earth Day is dedicated to the bountiful Mother Nature. Earth Day is an annual event on the 22nd of April to demonstrate support for environmental protection. First held in 1970, the Earth Day includes a wide range of events coordinated globally, including 1 billion people in more than 193 countries. On Earth Day 2016, the landmark Paris Agreement was signed by the United States, China, and some other 120 countries. This signing satisfied a key requirement for the entry into force of the historic Draft Climate Protection Treaty, adopted by consensus of the 195 nations present at the 2015 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Paris. Numerous communities are engaged in Earth Day week actions, an entire week of activities focused on the environmental issues that the world faces. On Earth Day 2020, over 100 million people around the world observed the 50th anniversary. This year, the global community celebrates the 51st Earth Day, and the theme of the year is titled as Restore Our Earth. A green project jointly organized by Ministry of Environment and Colombo Municipal Council was initiated today with the theme Save a Tree for Colombo. Accordingly, the aim of this project is to plant 100,000 new trees within the Colombo municipality limits in a span of 1 year. The 6th National Marine Environment 2-Day Experts Conference was commenced today in Colombo. The theme of the conference is the impact on fisheries, aquaculture and marine environment due to climate change with the effects of oceanic and coastal pollution. State Minister Dr. Nalaka Godahewa, Secretary to the Ministry Sirinimal Pereira and Senior Professor of University of Moratuwa Ajit Dialvis were present at the occasion. Sri Lankan Airlines has launched its flights to East Africa. Accordingly, under the first phase of the initiative, the national flag carrier commenced flight operations to Nairobi, Kenya today. This is Sri Lankan Airlines' second destination in East Africa after flying to the Seychelles. The scheduled flight commenced yesterday between Bandaranaike International Airport and Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, which is East Africa's largest and busiest airport. Accordingly, Sri Lankan Airlines will commence its flights to Nairobi using an Airbus A330 configured for 269 economy and 28 business class seats. The frequency of operation will be once a week. Flight UL1715 departed from Colombo at 10:45 a.m. and landed at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport at 2:40 p.m. with the return leg UL1716 leaving Nairobi at 4:40 a.m. and landing back into Colombo at 1:55 p.m.
The construction of the Basnagoda Reservoir in Karasnagala Gampaha Attanagala was commenced recently. It was held with the presence of Minister Chamal Rajapaksa. The aim of the project is to fulfill the drinking water requirement to close to 600,000 residents in Gampaha district. A financial provision worth 33,060 million rupees has been allocated for this project. The reservoir expected to be built by intercepting the Basnagoda Canal with a 130 meters long dam. Minister Chamal Rajapaksa said that plans have been made to provide compensation for those who will lose their properties during the construction of the reservoir. Minister Prasanna Ranatunga, State Minister Lasantha Alagiyawanna, Parliamentarian Upul Mahendra and officials of the Irrigation Department were present at this occasion.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa paid last respects to late Deputy Chief Prelate of the Amarapura Sri Saddhammavansa Mahanikaya, Venerable Dr. Dikwelle Tissatera. President Rajapaksa visited the Vaurukannala Rajamaha Vihara this morning and placed a notation in the condolence book after paying last respects to the late Nayaka Thera. The President called on the chief incumbent of the Amarapura Sri Saddhammavansa Mahanikaya, Most Venerable Ahungalle Sirisila Visuddhi Nayaka Thera and other Anunayaka Theras and expressed his deepest condolences to the Nayaka Theras and members of the Dayaka Sabha. Minister Dalasalaha Peruma, State Minister Kanchana Wijayasekara and Member of Parliament Nipuna Ranawaka were also present at the occasion accompanying the President.
Minister Namal Rajapaksa has been elected as the new chairman of the Sri Lanka-China Parliamentary Friendship Association. This appointment was made during an association meeting held under the patronage of Speaker Mahinda Yapa Abeyewardena with other parliamentarians at the parliamentary complex today. General Secretary to the Parliament, Dhammika Dasanayaka, and Ambassador of China to Sri Lanka, Ki Song Hong, were present at this occasion. Parliamentarian Premnath C. Dolavatta was elected as the Secretary to the Association. Parliamentarians Dr. Upul Galapathy, Aravind Kumar and Selvam Ade Kalanathan were elected as the Deputy Chairman of the Association. Mohammad Musamil and Ishaq Rahman were elected as Deputy Secretary and Treasurer of the Association respectively.
Sattis Paritrana Pirit chanting ceremony was organized at the Attanagala Rajamaha Vihara. The event was organized under the guidance of Chief Sanganayaka of Mahopadya Sianev Korale of Malwata chapter of Siam sect and Chief Incumbent of Attanagala Rajamaha Vihara, Venerable Pannila Ananda Thera. The ceremony was organized by All Ceylon Sandun Maga Bhikkhu organization. A total of 89 bhikkhus present for the Pirit chanting ceremony, which was organized with the participation of Secretary to the Defence Ministry, Retired General Kamal Gunaratna and State Minister Lasantha Alagiyawanna. The ceremony expected to be held for another 1.5 days period. And that's all the stories for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at the very same time. Good night.
Good night.